Hi, my name is Don Hancock. The topic for today is how to reduce or minimize the risks to buyer and seller when there's wraparound financing in violation of a due on sale provision. The first and primary method of reducing risk in wraparound transactions is to limit the duration of the wraparound mortgage. A mortgage term should be as short as possible. You can have a 30-year amortization loan if that's what you desire, but you should have a balloon payment in 2 to 5 years. If you go past 5 years, you're just inviting additional risks in this transaction. And I say that because the longer you're in the transaction, the longer the period of time the underlying lender or lenders have to discover that there's been a sale in violation of their mortgage. And the more you risk market conditions changing, which might prompt the underlying lender to take action to foreclose. For instance, if the underlying lender has a loan with a 5% interest rate and market rates go to 8%, the lender has a fairly substantial economic reason to look for these transactions and to call these loans due so that they can call their money in and reloan it at market rates. The second way to minimize risk in these transactions is to make sure that the unpaid balance of the wraparound mortgage is never less than the unpaid balance of the existing mortgages. You do not want to be in a situation where if you pay off the wraparound financing, there are insufficient funds from that payment to pay off the underlying loans. That will mean that the seller, 2 to 5 years down the road perhaps, will be required to come to closing with cash in order to close this transaction out. A third way to reduce risk is to set the transaction up so that the monthly payments on the wrap loan are at least equal to or greater than the monthly payments on the underlying existing loans. If you do not do that, then each month the seller will be in a negative cash flow position and will be required to contribute cash to the deal in order to keep the transaction alive. That increases the risk substantially. A fourth way to minimize risk is to always make sure that some knowledgeable source, preferably an attorney who's experienced in these matters, reviews the underlying loan terms and tracks those loan terms into the wrap loan. For instance, if the underlying loan is an adjustable rate loan, you need to make sure your wrap loan is an adjustable rate loan and that it adjusts in tandem with the underlying loan. Otherwise, if the note interest rate adjusts upward and the payment adjusts upward on the underlying loans and the wrap payment does not adjust upward, suddenly the seller is in a negative cash flow position. Similar topics at our website, www.hancock.flow to the underlying lender, which will alert the lender that this transaction has occurred. One of the primary ways to do that is to make sure that you don't disturb the existing insurance, fire and extended coverage insurance. The existing lender is an insured party, and if you modify the parties that are insured under the insurance, the existing lender will be notified. Finally, if you're a seller, you want to do your due diligence, check the credit, check the income of the buyer, make sure the buyer has a reasonable opportunity to pay the wraparound financing. Obviously, if the buyer is unable to make payments, this transaction is going to fail. If you need additional information on this subject or related topics, you can find them at our website, www.hancockmcgill.com.